Welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, with your host, Mark Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields and academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, brought to you by Great Success Education. I'm Mark Hoberman and my co-host is Susan Brender. How you doing today, Susan?
As always, Mark, being with you makes me very happy.
Thank you. And I'm talking about being happy. I have to tell you, nothing makes a former teacher, I still consider myself a teacher, happier, more fulfilled than when you see the success of your students. And we have a former student of mine on today who is doing incredible things. He is absolutely a rising star. He works in television now, and he's a writer. He's written some screenplays, really some phenomenal things. And that is something I'm really proud of.
You know, it's an interesting thing, Mark. I was involved in television as well, and it's the most exciting place to be. And when you're a rising star, there's no level that you can't reach.
Oh,
if you
absolutely.
try hard and if you work and if you do interesting things, telling stories the way they should be live, it's amazing. It's really amazing.
And I have to tell you, the persona, and you'll see when you get to meet him, the persona, the attitude, there's no ego. This guy was a winner, and I'm not 1% surprised at the success he's had. And it's, as you said, it's going to be limitless. So let's bring him on now. Our guest today is content producer at NBC Philadelphia, employee and budding screenwriter, David Chang. More important to me, I'm so excited. David is a former student. So David, welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame.
Thank you for having me, Mark. Really excited to be here. This is awesome. And
Great.
Yeah, just excited to talk to you.
Susan and I are so happy that you're here. David, tell our viewers what career path you chose, what you thought you would follow when you were actually in high school, when you and I first met.
Sure. So yeah, I've always been a fan of writing. I've always had a passion for writing, and I've always loved movies. So I did have definitely an interest in screenwriting at a very young age. So, you know, I think at the time I knew I wanted to do something in writing. I had so many different interests, though, that I wasn't exactly sure which path I would go in. And, you know, fate kind of took a hold there. I ended up applying to NYU, their dramatic writing program, as well as UPenn. NYU, I actually did not get in. So I think that kind of dashed my screenwriting dreams at the time. And I ended up getting into UPenn,
Right.
Majored in English, minored in creative writing, took some cinema studies classes as well.
Right.
And I think it was really my senior year where I took another screenwriting course that kind of sparked my interest once again. But I was definitely kind of, I guess, the talk that I definitely constantly heard was that it was not a career that was very viable. It was very difficult to break into.
Oh, very.
And it sort of discouraged me. And at the time, I also interned at NBC 10 Philadelphia, since I was in Philly, going to attend in UPenn. And that was the first time I really got into journalism. And it was the first time I really considered journalism as a possible career path. So after that, after I graduated, I ended up interning at Complex magazine. It's more of a lifestyle music magazine.
Are they in Philly?
No, they're based in New York City.
Okay.
So I interned there. It was an unpaid internship. I had student loans coming up, and I just wasn't exactly sure what I would, what I would be doing. And at the time, I also got a job offer from Pearson Education. I had interned there during the summer. And with that job, I really would have just been crunching numbers to a regular 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And it definitely was not what I really wanted to do. But at the same time, I didn't have anything else lined up. And I made a decision. I definitely took a risk. They offered me a position there full time, and I turned it down. And at the time, I was just thinking, oh man, I just made a huge mistake. I have nothing else lined up for me. I'm home with my parents. I just graduated. I'm going to be knee deep in debt. I have nothing really going on. And probably about 2 weeks later, I got a job offer from NBC 10 Philly. And that was more of a freelance position. And essentially I would be working, but it was still, still pretty pretty normal hours.
Right.
And I ended up taking that and moving to Philadelphia. And that was in 2010. And I've been there ever since then. So a little bit more than 10 years now. And I like being a journalist. It's still storytelling. It's solution based. You're kind of putting out information to help people, which I really enjoyed. And I'm still writing. And I like the job. It wasn't necessarily my passion. I still had the passion for screenwriting. So I'd say about 3 years ago, I turned 30, I had a bit of I call it a quarter life crisis. So I felt like I was doing what I like to do, but not what I was truly passionate about. And I just thought, you know what? I still love screenwriting. Let me give this another shot. The worst thing that could happen is that nothing comes of it, but at least I'm doing something that's fun. I can find a way to do that while still maintaining my career as a journalist. So let me just try it. So that was about 3 years ago. Since then, I've written 5 feature-length scripts and 1 TV pilot. And it was my second script that I wrote that it ended up winning a local Philadelphia competition called Set in Philadelphia. And after that, I did some networking, met some other writers, joined a Facebook group for screenwriters. And one of the screenwriters there, he ran a competition where basically he was asking for log lines. Log lines are essentially a 1 to 2 sentence summary of your screenplay. So I submitted mine.
That can't be easy.
It's not. It's like you have to be very brief. You have to kind of encompass everything about your script in about 1 sentence. It's like your pitch, basically.
David, let me tell you, you said that you weren't really passionate about what you were doing at the beginning, but I imagine that right now the passion is being fulfilled. Am I correct?
Definitely. Oh, definitely. It definitely reignited me as far as feeling like, man, I'm really doing something that I really love to do. And I felt like that even before there was any sort of prospects. If I was just writing for myself, I just really enjoyed doing it, and I kept putting it off because I kept telling myself I have a full-time job as a journalist and I just won't have time. And I think what it taught me is that, if you love something enough, you will find the time to do it, and
I want to also circle back for 1 second for the viewers. Very important. When I took my son, he went to the Rutgers Honors College. And when we went, they had said to us, you have to go to the Career Center because people who do internships, paid or otherwise, get a job twice as quickly as people who don't. So the fact that you did that and immersed yourself in what you were doing at the time, I think is a very, very big deal. So I know you've been, at NBC for 10 years. What are some of the highlights you can tell us about your job in Philly?
Sure. So I definitely agree with that. The internship during my senior year was key as far as getting that job and making the connections that I made and really taking advantage. So it was, I'd say a big highlight for me in 2016, before the presidential election. My coworker and I, we did a series called Battleground Brothers, where essentially we went to different college campuses in the Philadelphia area. We interviewed college students about the big issues for the election. We did a series. We did a series on gun control, social justice, climate change as well. And it was just kind of a web series that we released. It was different for me because I was used to just being behind the scenes and just writing articles. This was kind of my first time really being in front of a camera. We actually went on TV to promote it as well. And before we did that, we actually went on a tour where we followed Hillary Clinton and Mike Pence and Donald Trump as well. We went to different campaign events and interviewed different people. And that was a big stretch for me. It was a big challenge because this is, again, the first time where I was actually in front of a camera and talking. And again, I was used to just writing behind the scenes. And it was definitely a huge learning curve,
David, it's an interesting thing that you mentioned, that you were doing all these things covering political things. Today we're dealing with a big crisis, as you know, with this pandemic, and all of the stations, albeit NBC, CBS, you name it. I mean, MSNBC and CNBC and Fox. Now, when they tell a story, there's bias. Okay. Now you're a Black man. Okay. And we're going to talk about that for a moment because right now there's a lot of controversy over whether, Black Lives Matter or some of the other things that they're talking about. If you were to tell a story now or cover a story, what would you talk about?
Well, that's a great question. As journalists, we're supposed to be completely objective, but the truth is, it's almost impossible. We all have our biases. It's really just a matter of keeping them in check or not. I think the story that I would tell with Philadelphia, we have a huge gun violence problem.
Yep.
You know, we're on pace to have the highest number of homicides in years, record breaking, and it's really spiked during the pandemic, and there's multiple possible reasons for that. And many of the victims are African American or Black, and I think the story that we have to tell, we can't just, there's a tendency to just kind of make these people just numbers. It's like, 3 people were shot and killed in Philly today, 4 people were shot and killed, and we don't humanize them. We don't dig deeper than that, and I think that's our challenge now. That's what we're trying to do more of as journalists, is to really let people understand, especially because we have a big audience that's in the Philly suburbs that are just disconnected from these issues. So it's more than just like one person was shot. It was, it could be an aspiring engineer was shot, and a college student was shot. We need to really personalize these people who are dying, because then if we don't, then you just become numb to it. They're just numbers. They're not people to certain people, And I think that's a huge thing. Solution-based journalism is huge as well. We can't just, report doom and gloom if we're not offering any types of any kind of solution, So normally when we do a story about a shooting, we also provide resources for victims of gun violence, community resources. We're trying to press city officials more. Every time a big tragedy happens, they're just like, oh, we need to do something. Well, what are you going to do? It's kind of asking those questions. Are there mentorship programs? Are you cracking down on illegal gun sales? Stuff like that go beyond merely just saying someone got shot in Philly. Because anyone can do that, and to me, that's kind of cheap journalism. It's not real journalism because it's not solution based.
Well,
And I think that's a big thing that we're trying to do, because when we covered the protests, especially the Black Lives Matters protests, the counter to that is always, oh, well, why do Black lives only matter when it's a police involved shooting?
Right.
And the truth is that there are protests going on for violence, for Black on Black violence in Philly. It just doesn't get that attention in the media, or certain people who have these talking points, they ignore those things. So it's kind of on us to kind of put more of a spotlight on that, as far as what is the community doing now to kind of fight this problem. And I think it's a mixture of talking about societal issues that kind of contribute to violence, job loss, poverty, and institutionalized racism. That all goes hand in hand, but you can't just focus on one thing. It's a huge mixture of different issues that kind of contribute to this problem, and it's really having the intelligence and being nuanced enough to tackle all sides of the problem, and acknowledging that it's not as simple as one thing is contributing to this. It's many things, and that's the big thing. So I think a mixture of that and just humanizing the victims, that goes a long way as far as trying to find some kind of solution.
David, the screenwriting that you're doing, what is it covering? What's the subject matter?
So it's a variety of issues. Mainly though, it talks about race. The script that won that competition, it's a science fiction film, but it's also dealing with race. It's about it's a sci-fi film, so it's about an android, a lifelike android, who has the appearance of a Black person. He appears to be a Black person, but he has no concept of race or what it really means to be Black in America. So it's the script about this being, this machine who is trying to learn what it means to have a social identity, who's trying to learn what it means to be Black, and a big inspiration was a film like Get Out, which is a horror movie, but it's also about cultural appropriation. It's also about interracial relationships. It's also about, hypocrisy among white liberals. It's racism among white liberals as well. And it's saying so much while it's kind of using this form of a genre picture, of a horror picture. And I wanted to do something similar with a sci-fi picture, where I'm talking about this big social issues, but I'm using sci-fi as a lens to do that. And it kind of represents what I'm trying to do with the screenwriting, where, as a journalist, there's only certain things I can really say, because I need to be objective with my reporting. With screenwriting, I have a bit more freedom to kind of talk about certain issues, but I can use genre, I can use metaphor to do that, and that's a big part of why I'm so passionate about screenwriting, because it kind of fulfills something that, I haven't really been able to fulfill that much as a journalist. As a journalist, yes, we report the news, we try to be solution based, but I can't go on Facebook and talk about how I really feel about George Floyd or Black Lives Matter or any of these big issues, because again, I'm a journalist, I'm representing my company,
Right.
and there's only so much I can say. As a screenwriter though, I have more freedom, and not only do I have more freedom, but I can do it in such a way where it's creative enough where I'm conveying these issues and I'm doing it through genre. If you read the script, you can enjoy it on one level, just like a cool sci-fi story. If you go beyond that, though, you can pick up on some of the themes that I was trying to convey with it. And that to me is very exciting as a writer,
It's an interesting thing that you're mentioning about the screenwriting and the things that you could do differently than you do your journalism for newspapers or
Right.
for magazines or whatever. But here's the thing, let's bring a little bit of humor into this.
Right.
Mark, do you remember, and David, do you remember the movie called The Jerk?
Oh God, that was before his time, but that
Is
was
that Steve Martin?
Yeah.
I was born a young black.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
He looks
exactly.
in the mirror and he said, "Oh my God, am I black?" And he was white, and
Right.
I think there was a message there. If you
sure.
were, you know the movie, and Mark, the movie.
Oh, sure.
So it meant something, didn't
Yeah.
it? Didn't it have a message? What do you think the message was, David?
Well, I've only seen clips of the movie. Like Mark said, it's a bit before my time. But I think in the context of that movie, if I'm not mistaken, he's born in a black family.
Correct.
And, yeah. So it kind of, to me, something like that is showing the relationship between class and race. Sometimes when we talk about what it means to be black in America, obviously race is a huge factor. But class is a factor as well, as far as going through certain struggles and identifying with certain struggles. A big thing about, you look at someone like Martin Luther King Jr. and theories about why he was killed, and just what this country thought about him, before he was killed. I think now everyone looks at him as this hero, but he was hated. He was hated for what he was saying against the Vietnam War. And you can make an argument that he became really, really dangerous in the eyes of certain people when he started talking more about class, about, and sort of uniting, everyone who was kind of under this class structure. A great film that I just saw recently was called Judas and the Black Messiah, which was about Fred Hampton. And there's a whole scene where Fred Hampton, he unites Black gangs in Chicago, but also this group of these working class white people. I think they were called the Young Patriots, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there. Yeah. And also a Latino gang, and that's when he was really seen as a threat. When he was kind of uniting all these different people, and using the context of class rather than race. And I think that's kind of a powerful message. And obviously, a movie like The Jerk, it may not be saying all of that, but it's implying certain things when you have a story of a white guy being raised in a black family, and him, looking at the context of race through class, through being raised in a certain situation versus the color of his skin. And that's not to say that cultural differences aren't important. They are, but class also plays a big role as well, as far as uniting people and any sort of disconnect as well.
I'm glad that I see a juxtaposition there, and I'm glad that Susan mentioned that. So your script is called Skin, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And the main character, I don't want to say the word robot. The main character is
he's a robot, an android, a robot, a lifelike.
So the question is, I'm kind of anticipating two things going on here. Yeah. The android not treating people a certain way based on their race or ethnic background because he doesn't have that capacity, but also starting to see how he's being treated in the eyes of other people. So I'm thinking that's where the power might be. Am I correct?
That's correct. That's a big thing, where his experiences, he finally starts to understand, wow, my skin color actually means something here as far as how I'm being treated, as far not only how I'm being treated, but also how I identify with a certain group. Because the whole thing, what he's trying to do is he's learning about social identity theory, and he's trying to learn, okay, where do I really belong? I'm this life, I look like a human. And technically I'm Black, but what does that even mean? And that's kind of his struggle throughout the script, is kind of learning what that actually means from a cultural standpoint. And really just, it's called skin. So it's like, all right, what's the big deal about skin color in the United States? Like, why is this country so obsessed with that? What does that, what does that even mean? And it's kind of, I think taking an android and kind of put him in that context is interesting, because when you think of an android, you think of a super logical character who just kind of looks at things through logic. And so how would someone like that process something as emotional, as complicated, as subjective as race? And I think that's kind of where a big part of the conflict of the script comes from.
Mark, I know that this show is really about teaching kids and teaching parents different things. And David has a lot of information. Now, David, if you were in a classroom with a bunch of kids, it doesn't matter, any race, any ethnicity, it doesn't matter. What would you tell them? Because you've mentioned that you've really come to the point of where you're doing something where you can really tell the things that are important to you. Mm-hmm. What is the most important thing that you would tell the kids and the parents?
I'd say find out what you're passionate about, because when you're passionate about something, you can put in so much energy. You can put so much energy into that, because screenwriting inherently isn't something where you're just playing make believe. So it's not really something where you're kind of infusing all like these deep, discussions. But because I'm passionate about it, other things that I'm informed about, I can kind of use that as an avenue to express that. And you can do that through anything, really. If you're a painter, you can express how you're feeling through your paintings. If you're a singer, if you're a poet, a writer, a teacher, anything really. But what you need is the passion for it, and I think that's the most important thing, because there's one of the greatest tragedies in life is doing something that you don't truly love doing, and you just kind of feel like you're just wasting your years because you don't enjoy doing it. And I think if you're passionate about something, it kind of amplifies everything else. You start to take more risks. Sure. You start to become more informed about things because you want to learn more. So you want to read more, you want to study more. And I think that's the biggest thing. So it's just discovering what you're passionate about and kind of blocking all the outside noise. So many people told me being a screenwriter, it doesn't make any sense. You don't get paid it's impossible to break into Hollywood, or it's impossible to do any of that. You're kind of just wasting time. And when you're passionate about something, you never feel like you're wasting time. You always feel like you're being more fulfilled in what you're doing. So I would just say, no matter what it is, as long as it's constructive and legal, there's a lot of passionate drug dealers out there. So you don't want to do that.
Yeah, right.
But passion is.
Yeah, there's a lot of passionate criminals. So as long as it's something that's helpful, that's not hurting anyone, I'd say pursue your passion. So
well, it's interesting because David mentioned passion about 15 times, and we always hear that on the show, and it's so important. And I also want to point out that I knew that David would follow this kind of path, but I know where I am in life and my passions, they weren't there in high school. I would say they weren't even there in college. Right. So passions do shift. And some bragging rights for the East Ramapo Central School District, as well as Spring Valley High School, where he went to school, is that the person a year older than him, Mondaire Jones, I had dinner with Mondaire last February before the big lockdown, and Mondaire is now made history. He became the first ever openly gay African-American congressman in history. Yeah. I mean, Mondaire was in the Capitol when it was attacked.
Yeah.
So, these two guys are game changers, and they're just some of the many people who followed their passion. So I just love his advice to people. But we often say this on the show: people know the glory, but they don't know the story. So Skin is you've won this this contest, but now I would argue that your work is first beginning. So what is happening next with regards to the
So yeah, well, thank you for that. And yeah, so I mentioned earlier how I joined a Facebook group for screenwriters, and I submitted the log line for Skin, the summary for Skin.
Right.
The screenwriter who ran the competition, he selected mine. I was among the 6 people that he selected. He asked to read the script. He read it, really enjoyed it. We did a whole Zoom call where he gave me some advice, and then he gave it a shout out in the group. Little did I know that a member of the group was actually an assistant with Fourth Wall Management. They're this literary agency who they represent screenwriters and actors as well. And that assistant saw the post, reached out to me, asked for the script. I sent it to her. I didn't hear back in a couple of months. I honestly forgot about it. And then I found out that her boss, a manager by the name of Sydney Blanc with Fourth Wall, she had read the script, really enjoyed it. She reached out to me, we talked for a little bit, and we made an agreement, and I was repped through this Facebook group, which is pretty crazy because, again, what I had been told is that I had to move to LA or New York to even have a chance of getting a manager, and I was able to just do it through this Facebook group. And so that was awesome, and it was a little bit scary because at the time I was just doing it as a hobby. I had no kind of intention of attempting to do this, professionally, but after that happened, definitely opened up some doors as far as getting the script out there to different production companies. And the biggest thing that I kind of learned is that, okay, I have this script, don't just rest on that, keep writing. So after that, I just wrote more. So I have more features now that I'm developing, a TV pilot I'm developing as well, just trying to get my work out there to as many people as possible.
So I think your message, David, is perseverance, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Perseverance. Definitely.
Big stuff.
So it's exciting. And again, I found a way to balance my work as a journalist with my work as a screenwriter.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing is it's helped me improve in both, as far as being a journalist, screenwriting has helped improve my storytelling abilities. As far as being a screenwriter, the journalism has helped my structure. A lot of people kind of comment on how, a lot of my scripts, the grammar is very good. The structure is good. It's kind of like this clean structure as far as how I write. And all that comes from, from being a journalist, from kind of getting to the point, getting to the facts of the story quickly, and I think kind of, I found a way to kind of enhance both through my experience in both. So.
Well, I think the important buzzwords that I hope the listeners, the viewers are hearing are passion, balance, time management.
Definitely.
All those things. You can't have one, you can't have two, you need all three if you want to be successful.
Right.
Great information and great advice. But David, where can people go to find out more about you?
So, yeah, sure. So my Twitter, it's at Philly Chang. I have a Coverfly page. Coverfly is basically, it's a network for screenwriters to kind of get the work out there. So it's David Chang. It's David Chang at Coverfly. My Instagram is DA Chang, and then my Facebook is David Chang as well. So it's pretty easy to find. And with Coverfly, it's more so just all my scripts, the outlines for all my scripts, and in certain competitions that I've won as well. And my Twitter is more focused on my work in journalism. Normally, I just post some of my stories that I've written and share some of the content from NBC 10 Philadelphia as well. So there's that. And then obviously, if you want to read my articles, NBC10.com, you just search my name. And yeah, it's mostly just breaking news stories, covering the local news, the Philadelphia area, and things of that nature as well. So, and then finally on YouTube, the series is called Battleground Brothers. It's on the NBC 10 Philadelphia's YouTube page. And it's a series of short documentaries focused on different issues impacting millennial voters. And that I'm very proud of that work, because again, I had to really stretch myself for that. I wasn't just sitting at a desk and writing. I was kind of in the field talking to people in front of a camera, and I really enjoyed that. So that's those are really kind of some of the main avenues, I guess, that I have.
Well, all exciting things, and no pressure. I expect to be asked to be at the very least an extra when the movie gets coming.
I'm thinking of a couple roles.
Yes, I want some good ones. I regular wages, whatever you get in SAG, whatever is fine with me. David, so excited that we had you on the show. Susan and I want to thank you for joining us today and all the incredible advice you've given to the viewers. Remember to reach out to us on social media. Look for Great Success on Facebook and Twitter, also Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. You can also find me, Mark Hoberman, on LinkedIn. Again, thank you to former student, budding superstar, David Chang, being with us today. Susan, as always, thank you. And to the viewers, don't forget to tune into our next show. This is Mark Hoberman. Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame. David, always great. So good to see you again.
Always great. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Susan. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame. To contact Mark Hoberman, email him at info@gradesuccess.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame.